Hey guys, so today we are looking at Bad Sector by Cy Dethan, and I'm gonna be honest, this was a hard one for me to start getting into. Um, the, I don't know, I guess the back of the book, usually I'll read the back of the book before I start reading the book, and all it says is, in a sentient city of expectation, an augmented executioner hunts the murderer of everyday Carrie, the woman who couldn't be killed. Permanent Mark is going to solve this case if it kills him again. And I don't know. I guess it's intriguing enough to some people, but it really didn't excite me. And usually when that happens, because like I said, I don't choose the books I read. I don't choose the books I buy. I don't choose what order I read them in. I have that all randomly selected for me. And so I know I'm going to read it, and I'm going to read it cover to cover, no problem. But when I get to a situation like this, it's very easy to get kind of in a reading slump, if you will. So the way I typically deal with that is I go online and I start looking at the reviews to see what others have said about it, because usually the reviews will get me excited about it because they'll give me a little bit more information. They're like, oh, you'll never see the plot twist coming, and sometimes that is like okay, well, I probably won't. And other times it's like, I don't know, I'm pretty familiar with this genre, but I can see it coming. But usually they'll add something, the reviewers will add something that makes me get a little bit more excited to read it. And so I went into the Amazon site to find the reviews. There's one review, it's 5 stars, and that's it. There is nothing written about it, and I'm like, how did you rate it 5 stars, but you had nothing to say about it? And then I went to Goodreads, and there's no reviews on Goodreads. And so I had really nothing to go into this with. I literally went into this blind, and I was like, okay, well, I guess we just dive on in. And so I struggled through the first 2 chapters, and then about halfway through the 3rd chapter I started getting into it. Mainly because it kind of just throws you into this world without a whole lot of pomp and circumstance. It's just like, okay, here we are, this is what we're doing, let's go. And I do like the very first 2 sentences. The first 2 sentences, honestly, dragged me in a lot better than the last, what's on the back page. It says, I've been legally dead for close to 3 hours by the time they come to get me. Long enough to get used to the idea, I guess. And then, in chapter 3, I believe, the beginning of chapter 3 says, not gonna lie, and there is some colorful language in here that I'm going to just kind of skip over because personal reasons, but not gonna lie, that first week out of the medical rig, terrifying. Not because they've taken my entire identity and either deleted or sealed it away somewhere. Everyone in the cities has to deal with some version of that. Not because they've paired me back to their idea of something more practical for the work either, an idea that roughly translates to near total blank from what I can tell, and not even because they've put me through the surgery with nothing more than an offhanded assurance that original flavor me had signed the paperwork. No, the terrifying thing was being told that this was all absolutely my own doing, that I had done something bad enough to put me here, and then agreed to this as my best option for resolving it. This right here, and they were at great pains to make sure I understood the point, was what winning looked like. And that's where I started, oh, okay, now I'm getting a little bit more interested because the very first chapter is very short. It's a couple of pages, and it's just him waking up basically on a table where they're doing the surgery. And then the second chapter is him going into the job. We're in present day for him, and we're following him on a work order. And then chapter 3 starts in with one of the first few days of his training as he's getting into it. And it keeps going back and forth like this to where you're in present day and in his past with training with different things. And if I had to compare this, as I got into it, one of the things that got me into it is because of how I could compare it. And if I had to compare it to anything, it would be Minority Report meets the Jason Bourne series meets Venom. And I say that because for the Minority Report, if you don't know what some of these series are, the Minority Report is a movie where it's set in the future, and there is a unit called the Pre-Crime Unit where they are able to predict crimes before they happen, and then they go and arrest the people that are going to commit the crimes before they commit the crimes. In this case, he is a futuristic sort of law enforcement, but he's less police and more Men in Black, where he's and he's not going after aliens. He's going after other people like him who have gone through rollback protocols, which is basically you have a set. It's so hard to explain. I don't really have I have gone through this book a couple of times, and I don't really have my own mind wrapped around it. There's times when I was reading this where I'm like, I'm not smart enough for this to read this book, honestly. And a lot of times it felt like my brain was melting, and it was just sent my whole mind on a mind trip. But basically, from what I can gather, the government as it stands has an idea of what is the best version of you to keep you the most productive for, as he says, practical for whatever work you've been assigned. And they roll you back mentally, and basically they wipe your memory of anything, and so your memory goes back to a certain save point. And so every time you come back to them, they roll you back. Every time you do something wrong or you get out of line, they have these guys, what they call the hangmen, come and basically put you out of commission, or as the advocate says, murder you, until the unit can come grab you, take you to the clinic, roll you back, and then set you back out about 4 hours later, with little to no ramifications, hopefully, depending on how long you've gone unchecked. So the futuristic bounty hunter type situation is where I get the Minority Report vibes. This guy, like I said, he signed the paperwork and agreed to do this, but he has no memory of actually signing the paperwork. He has no memory of agreeing to this. He's just been assured that he has agreed to this, in the same way that Jason Bourne went into an experiment thinking he was going to get paid, but then as he went through the experiment, he signed a paper giving up all of his money, and what he got instead was a collection of odds and ends and bits and bobs that he eventually figured out how to use to deal with the government that was coming after him, or the unit that was coming after him, the organization coming after him. And they basically turned him into a weapon against them inadvertently. And then the Venom comes because when they do this program, part of this program requires them to cut your brain in half, and the right side is basically taken out, and you are given what they call the advocate. And this is a sentient consciousness that not only shares your brain space, but also has control of the left side of your body. So, sorry, left side of your body. And so they have a share of your brain and your body in the same way that Venom does with Eddie. And they talk back and forth with the person that they're paired up with. And what's interesting about Mark and Advocate is, from what I can understand, Advocate is, and he doesn't really have a name, and he's not really he's a genderless thing, but I call him he because, one, he's in a male body, and two, Mark himself, the main character, refers to the Advocate as he. So I assume that if the Advocate was not fond of the he pronoun, that he would smart off to Mark about referring to him as he. And he doesn't, so he seems perfectly fine with a he pronoun. But Advocate, from what I can gather, is a part of a program. He's not actually human himself, but he is some sort of sentient consciousness. And so because of that, you kind of feel like, I'm showing my age here, but you kind of feel like he's supposed to be more of a Knight Rider program, a kit. And he's supposed to be analytical and logical and help Mark overcome the human fallacies that we tend to have, where we sometimes maybe we overthink things, maybe we feel too much about things or whatever. And so the idea that you get is, okay, Advocate is the analytical logical program that overrides the emotional and philosophical side of the human, to help balance out the humanness of the human it's inhabiting. And then Mark is supposed to balance out Advocate by being more human. But the roles seem to be reversed, because Advocate seems a lot more human and emotional than what Mark is. And Mark, the human, seems more analytical and logical. And he's a very black and white A-type person of, this is the job. We go and do the job. We do not ask questions. We do not second guess it. They tell us to do this, we do this. We don't worry about why we're doing it. We just do it because we're told to do it. And Advocate is very much, okay, but there has to be a reason they're asking. And Advocate gets very suspicious very easily, especially when Everyday Carrie gets killed. Because Everyday Carrie is supposed to be a handler that helps with the training program that takes them in through the Warren. The Warren is a kind of a maze training battlefield. So she's the handler for Archie. And Archie is who the trainee is battling against. And they are even told by Bloodshot Iris, don't worry about thinking, don't worry about overanalyzing it, just act, react. And Mark is really good at reacting, but Advocate is even better at reacting, because he reacts in a very real and visceral way. Like when they say, okay, we're going into the maze, Advocate is like, absolutely not. No, we are not. We are not going in there. We are staying right here where it's safe. That is a creepy place That is 7 layers of BS is what that is. We're not doing it. But Mark, because he has what they call the dead man's handle, can shut down Advocate and pull rank, because all in all, even though he's sharing the body and the brain with Advocate, it is still technically his body, although Mark refers to it as the body because he doesn't have full control over it. And he forces Advocate against his will. He's like, nope, we're told to go in here. This is what we're doing. We're going in here. And Advocate's like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And so the two of them end up working well enough together to where by the time that they're done with the training program, they do get a point on Archie, and even Carrie was like, never seen anyone get a point on Archie before. And so you get the indication right in Chapter 2 that Advocate and Mark work really well together. They have figured out how to become a unit in this body, in this brain. But then when Carrie is found murdered, it sends kind of a shockwave through the entire Hangman system. And as the saying goes, we're never really dead until until the last hangman forgets us. And that is very true, because what ends up happening is when a hangman is killed, everybody goes to a quote-unquote funeral service for the hangman. And when you get into this chamber, they wipe everybody's memories. They basically augment everybody's memories to where they edit out any knowledge of that dead hangman, and that hangman never exists. And this is where the Men in Black vibe comes in as well, because they are an invisible unit, basically. It doesn't matter where they go. There are cameras and there are sensors and systems all over the place. And if a hangman walks into a place, everything shuts down and glitches, so that there's no evidence that that hangman was ever there. It just immediately registers, there's a hangman here, we are not registering this. And then once the hangman leaves, all evidence of the hangman is erased. And that's the best that they can get. It's not, as they see it, it's not a punishment, it's a liberation, because nothing they say, do, or think is ever held against them, because everybody is wiped of their memories. So there is no liability, there is no accountability to the hangman. They do whatever they do, and if the hangman get out of line, well, then the organization just shuts the hangman down, destroys him. He is technically, for all intents and purposes, killed, and the hangmen have another funeral. This book will have you asking questions. The first question that I ended up asking is, Mark goes to this funeral for Carrie, and he says, this is the 6th time I've been through this process. And I'm like, wait a minute. If your brain was wiped of the memory of those hangmen, how do you know this is the 6th time you've been through this process? And then the other question is, Vaughn is his operator. She's the one that gives him the work order. And anytime he gets the work order, she shows up through a proxy, which is another human puppet, basically. But then when you get to the funeral, you realize all of the hangmen have operators, and all of the operators are using proxies. And it's like, okay, why are the operators using proxies? Why don't they ever show themselves? When he's given the case of Carrie, all the hangmen have their memory wiped. He is the only one. He and Advocate are the only ones that don't get their memory wiped, because they are on the case to solve. They've got to remember Carrie in order to solve the case. The only lead they have is her last work order, who has wiped himself, from what they can tell, back to 100% blank. He is not even a being anymore. And so how they get answers from him, nobody knows. They just know, go find him, cut him up, and figure it out. And they don't want to know how he finds out, they just want him to figure it out. And really and truly, the only thing that they really want him to do at this point is cut this guy up first, and then we'll see where that leads. And once the case is solved, then they have the intention of wiping his mind of Carrie. And he's like, yeah, sure, this is my job. I'm going to go do my job. Give me the work order. Let's go find this guy and let's solve this case. Advocate is suspicious. Nothing feels right. Nothing feels as it seems. He thinks there's more to it, and he's questioning everything. And Mark is like, dude, shut up. We don't have to think about this. It's not our job to think about this. He's like, well, why are we going to go cut this guy up? Because we were told to. But why would he do this? Why would he wipe himself to total blank? Who cares? Not a question we're supposed to ask. What we're supposed to ask is, who killed Carrie and why? Figure that out, turn that in, and our job is done, and we go on to the next work order. And this is why I say Advocate is very much more human than Mark, and Mark is just challenged to... He's challenged by Advocate to basically reclaim his humanity, I guess. So, like I said, I went through this book a couple of times because there were so many different things that it was like, wait, I'm sorry, I think I missed something, and I had to go back, and then, okay, now I'm caught up. Like I said, it's a complete mind trip. And I enjoyed it. I absolutely, there were times I had to put it down because it was like, I'd get to a certain part, and it's like, okay, I've got to put this down and go do the dishes while I process what I've just read. And then but it's an easy book to put down because you need to process things, but it's a hard book to leave down because as soon as you put it down and you've processed what you've read, then you immediately like, okay, wait, I gotta find out what happens next. And then you start asking those questions. And I love that this book does that it's not just an easy read of light and fluffy and everything. It's just, okay, I really have to think. I have to put some mental work in here. There is a puzzle and you really want to solve it. And you keep thinking you're ahead of Cy, and you're like, okay, I know where the author's going with this. I know where the author's going with this. Okay, nope, that's not where he was going, but I like where he's going. I see what you did there, and I'm okay with it. Let's move on. And it just kind of, it doesn't give you, it doesn't give you a whole lot of chance to sit down and process it, which is why you have to put it down to process, because if you don't, you're just being pulled right through. It's like, one person says it takes you by the hand. It doesn't take you by the hand. It grabs your arm and tugs you. It's just like, come on, we're going. And like I said, I liked it. It was a great mix of different sci-fi and thriller that I really enjoyed. So as usual, I will put a link in the description for this book. Definitely go check this out if it sounds like something you're interested in. And we're going to kind of have a marathon of videos because this is, if you're seeing this on July 30th, tomorrow, I will be posting the video on the August TBR. That is, this stack of books is my August TBR. You will be seeing how I chose those. August 1st, I will be announcing a 100 book buy, and I will tell you in that video how to get your book on the list of potential books for me to buy for next year. I am buying 100 books. You will get that announcement, more details about that on August 1st. And then on August 2nd, I will be talking about August of the People. And other than that, you won't see me again until August 6th when I go on to the next book. And it will be one of these. Don't know if I'm going to read these in the order that they're stacked, but they're going to be read in, and they're going to be read and the videos are going to be done in August. So, that being said, guys, that's all I got for you today. I'm sorry that it was such a long video, but there was really no way of shortening it. I have recorded this thing 3 times, 4 times, trying to get it cut down. But this is the best hopefully this is the last time I have to record this video. Until then, I will see you guys. Well, I'll see you tomorrow when we talk about the August TBR. So until then, bye.